Welcome to Motivate You, the winner circle here. This is 50.com. Your host, June Archer. My next guest is an amazing young man, MSNBC representing, political figure. I can say so much about this young man. Please welcome back to the show, my good friend, Ari Melber from The Beat. Ari, what's going on, brother?
What's going on? Nice to see you, June. Peace.
Man, it's been some time since we had the opportunity to sit down and speak. So much has happened. So I want to unpack a few things. First of all, congratulations. We're talking about 5 solid years of The Beat. How does it feel to be on and continue to trend in that direction where I feel like you haven't even reached the apex yet, Ari? Like there's so much more left for you. And the culture is surrounding you and we're loving you. How does it feel to be on air with The Beat up to this point?
Well, thanks for asking. Very nice introduction. Yeah, we started in 2017. We've made it through this entire administration. I think that like any new thing you do in life, people think, oh, because it's on TV, or obviously we do have a lot of support and we're part of a big, great channel, which is wonderful. But anything you do, small or big, people don't know about it the first day you do it. The second week, they say, oh, I hear about that, or not. A month later, it takes time. I tell people I was out on the West Coast and someone said to me, oh, I like you on MSNBC. Thank you. Appreciate that. They said, when are you going to get your own show? And it's great they even know some of what we're doing, but they might know me from filling in for another host or being a guest reporter on the West Coast at 3 p.m. Pacific. Maybe they've never even noticed or been around to catch the show. So the way I feel is that has slowly evolved. We moved for the first time into #1 most watched in the last few months, beating Fox News. And that's a sign that what we're doing is registering with a large news audience. And as you mentioned, yes, we try to be broad, diverse, thoughtful, cultural, and also do a great news product. So we're not trying to do some offbeat other version. We're just hopefully evolving and including more people into what the news can be.
And now in 2020, you were nominated for Emmy, the best outstanding live interview. How did that feel? Because the last I saw you, you were grinding, and then I saw, wow, like Ari, this is dope. This is really dope for you, dope for the culture and what you contribute. How did it feel to get that nomination?
I mean, thank you for asking, because it was really meaningful to us. It's the first time that the Beat was ever nominated for an Emmy. As a statistical matter, most news shows on cable never get one of those. So to get one in our first few years was great. And Drake says trophies. We didn't get the trophy. It went to Amanpour. Shout out to Christian Amanpour, who's such a talented, amazing international journalist. But to even be in the category, people always say, "Oh, to even be in it," I really felt that way, like because I look up to her as someone that I was watching before I was doing this. So to be in the category, to be included, to be even recognized, nominated that way was great. And it's for our team, because the thing is about these Emmys, and folks may know this as well, like with Grammys, of course, there's the most visible person, which is fine. But many of them are team efforts. And so for journalists on my team who work so hard every day to get that nomination, I told them, I said, you're Emmy nominated for life. I hope you stay here because we're doing this work. But I'm so proud of that, for them to work that hard and then say, you could leave here, you 10 years later, that's still, you have that in your life, you have that on your resume, and especially for young people in news. I mean, journalism in many ways has only gotten to be a tougher field. There's certainly less money and support in a lot of print journalism these days. Everyone knows, I think, about the way it's been disrupted. So for journalists on the team, it's like, you're Emmy nominated for life, baby.
That's true. That's true. Listen, no one can take that from you. I want to go back to 2017. Meek Mill says there's levels to this. When you started in 2017, did you even envision where you would be now? How was it? Because you were in the realm of attorney, doing what you're doing, making your magic happen there. But did you think that first day in 2017, when you stepped in front of that camera, that you would be here? And how did it feel sitting in that seat then? And how do you feel about sitting in that seat now?
It's funny. I don't usually stop and do this, right? These are the kind of questions I ask other people usually. But June, I would say not this quickly is what I would say. Of course, you're ambitious and you put it together. We've been really hardened by some of the things you and I just touched on. And so I would have thought some of that would have taken longer, and some of that is hard work, and some of that is timing in life, because a lot more eyes are on the news for a lot of reasons, right? So that is also relevant to the opportunity you get. I always tell my team, when it comes to connecting with the viewers, it's like a restaurant. You could make the best food in the city, but if nobody's going out that night because it's a snowstorm or because it's a recession or for whatever, then the fact that you cooked it that night doesn't mean anyone's going to taste it, right? And so there are times in the news cyclically where you might be doing work that's important, but there's fewer people there that are coming out to find it. And then there's other times where there's a lot of people coming in, and if what you do, is unimaginative or lazy, then they're going to taste it once and go somewhere else. So I've thought about that in terms of why this has been a particularly intense period. My journey has been pretty gradual in that I got out of law school in 2009, was practicing law, paying off my student loans over a long period of time, and doing writing and press on the side. And most of that was either unpaid or lightly paid. So you submit a freelance piece to the Baltimore Sun, they reject it, you submit it again, and someday they take it, then they send you $150, what's sometimes called a kill fee, like $150 for it. That's fine. It's not nothing. Right. It's $150. You spend a lot of time on it. That process for years. And then I went over to be the legal reporter in 2013 at MSNBC. So then I was doing that for years. And then, as you say, in 2017 was, wait, here's the ball to do a show. And you get the ball, it may or may not work. I mean, sometimes some of these programs, I'm not saying any secrets here, some of these programs they'll start a show, it'll be on for 6 or 9 months, and they'll pull it. So yeah, I definitely thought that could have happened as well. So the fact that we found at least for now, an audience is great and not automatic to me.
So I want to talk about this past administration as it relates to where we're going. You dropped a lot of HipHop Quotables over the last administration. Seem a little relevant, but a little aggressive. Do you feel like the quotables moving forward will be a little more uplifting, a little more upbeat? Like, how do you feel these quotables will live as we move into this Biden Harris administration?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many aggressive lines in hip hop that fit Trump so perfectly, and so sometimes people are like, "How are you bringing this up?" And I'm like, "How could I not? Like,
how could you not?"
And for example, I remember right after the election, before it had been called on that Saturday, they were still filing lawsuits and running around, but Trump was clearly down in several states. So our job is to report the facts, not whether you like him or not, but just like it would take beyond a miracle to turn the results in more than one state, although you do have the right to sue. What he did later was wrong, but at that point it was, okay, you could still sue, and people do that. And I was on air with Rachel, and we got this news come in that they were suing in every state. But that's no good for them, because if you sue to stop the counting in states where you're behind, then even if you won the suit, you would be locking in your loss. So you would actually need a better strategy. You would need more competent lawyers who are like, this is what lawyers do. This is why lawyers, frankly, are annoying, is they're like, we're going to sue here to lock in the victory. And over there, don't sue. We hope to change the result, right?
Right.
So Rachel goes, it just seems, Ari, like even if they won, they would lose. I mean, am I missing? She's asking me as the lawyer, like, am I missing something? I said, no. I mean, this is what happens when you operate like Trump does, and you have so few competent lawyers left that will even work for you, that you're just throwing everything at the wall. I said, they're suing in Arizona, where if they won this suit, they would lock in the loss because they're currently down in Arizona. This is a DJ Khaled level of litigation where, congratulations, you played yourself. And it was just like, that's that, right? Now, would that apply to every other politician? I mean, the politicians of both parties might make, dumb moves, but yeah, some of the aggressive stuff might wane. But then on the serious point, when you look at it, we've done pieces on this, when you look at how artists and hip hop is a primarily Black American art form, although not exclusively, but how Black artists have been narrating truths that the rest of America didn't want to face or wanted to deny, that's still going to be relevant, because we're going to be covering those stories, and unfortunately doesn't change that much with regard to who's in the White House. if we're looking at, here's the stories of police brutality, here's the stories of local corruption, and here's some bars that really make it clear, because artists make things clear. That's why we remember music and movies. Ask someone what was on the show, what was on Ari's show 2 years ago. You know, they might be like, oh, Ari's cool, but I don't remember, because I'm not speaking at a level that an artist does, where people remember the Jay-Z's, you know, Reasonable Doubt. They remember Politics as Usual. They remember lines from The Godfather. So there's a reason why we turn to art to make it clear.
Did you start out knowing that you wanted to infuse hip hop in your show, or is this something that kind of out of nowhere you kind of did it and realized, I may have something here?
I always leaned on things to make things plain. I mean, the other day I referenced Rick and Morty, which is this like very funny sci-fi cartoon. I lean for that all the time, but obviously hip hop is something that I'm passionate about, so it comes up a lot, but other music and other stuff. So we knew, or I knew when we were hatching plans about how to weave that in. What I didn't know, because you couldn't, is that like the culture would talk back so much. And it's like anything in life. I mean, I don't think you can do things and be like, I'll do this, and then they'll do that. It's like, well, you don't know what they're going to do. You got to do you. And there are people who do amazing things and aren't embraced in their own time anyway. But did they know that they'd be embraced for generations after? There's something more tragic about that, but like that also happened. So point being, we didn't, I mean, the embrace back was wild, because it would come really organically. It wouldn't be just like us trying to book a guest, which we do, but a lot of shows do. And when you talk about big guests, I mean, everybody wants to get, you mentioned Meek Mill. We had him on The Beat. He was also on CNN. I mean, people want to talk to Meek Mill, particularly when he was in the news, even for what turned out to be an unlawful imprisonment. So it's not just booking. It was like people responding back. Like we were covering, I'll just give a specific example. We were covering this thing around all of these hush money agreements, these NDAs with Trump and other people. And I had a guest on who was an expert in that. I had Al Sharpton on, and we were discussing like, are NDAs always bad? And the answer is legally, not automatically. Like you could work for Apple and design the next iPhone, and when you leave, you sign an NDA about not talking about the next iPhone, right? And that's just what's a trade secret, right? But in other situations, it looks really fishy or suspicious if there isn't a good reason for it, and everyone has to sign NDAs, right? So I was explaining this, and I was like, you know, Pusha T speaks to this issue that like the hush money is usually a bad sign, saying, you know, the money is to cover up all the guns and violence. The hush money is the only moment of silence. And when we were talking about that, and then Pusha like jumps online and responds to the segment and says like, oh, amazing, but no, Ari, not in front of Rev. Like, don't talk about it in front of Sharpton. And then puts all the laughing emojis, and then people are laughing about that. And then it was like a second wave moment. And then in the comment, because I don't read every comment, but on that one, I was like looking at Pusha T's post. And then people were like, is this like a satire? Like, where is this video from? Like, they don't think it happened on the news, or like, well, it was Al Sharpton on SNL or something, you know? And so that's a kind of interaction that you can't plan, but when it happened organically, we thought that was wonderful.
And it seems as though those moments happen pretty frequently, especially for you. I want to talk about the 50 Cent interaction that you guys had. And then the first interview that we did, I had the opportunity, and I don't think you realize this, and he doesn't, that I knew that you were going to be there that day. He did not, and you did not. And I wanted to make sure we set it up that you guys would have the opportunity to meet that day. But I realized prior to that moment that you guys were going back and forth online, mutual respect, and people were loving the fact that you guys were commenting on each other's response to what was going on in this investigation. How did it feel going back and forth with 50 Cent?
Yeah, well, that was great. So that was one of the first big ones where, and I do think like, again, it comes with leadership, right? So like if someone as iconic as 50, who's of course an artist and a rapper, but also an entrepreneur and a globally famous person, like when he was doing it, I think that also opened a lane. And shout out to June, because I remember that day, 50 and I had like talked online, but that's just one layer. It was June who brought me into the building, and then you had us meet, and then we also clicked that way. And who knew that would happen or not? Or at least that's my opinion. I thought we clicked well because we really had a lot to talk about. But that happened with covering again, this goes back to a point we were discussing earlier, like, how do you explain this complicated stuff, right? Why do you need a lawyer in the first place? I mean, Chappelle was making waves this year saying the contract's unfair.
Right.
It's written in such jargon that it's not written so you understand it. It's written so you don't understand it.
Right.
So
and not in your favor. And not in your favor.
Not in your favor. Then you got to pay your own lawyer to come and explain it to you. But you're just getting their interpretation, and then they're saying it's good enough, sign it. And Chappelle says, but what if all those lawyers are basically more on their own team than your team, right? Which is the same scene in The Social Network when they're like, how could you sign away your equity? The young guy who got basically got screwed over. And he says, well, I thought those lawyers were my lawyers. They were Facebook's lawyers, but he helped create Facebook. But at that point, they were Facebook's lawyers for the different CEO. You know, it's grimy and rough out here. So
it's hot out here for a pimp.
Yeah. So we were discussing how this works. And so likewise, I don't think the average person knows or needs to know how state and federal sentencing works. It's also quite complicated. But in a lot of different states, depending on the situation, there's more leeway for you to get a break. So if you have a good situation or a good lawyer or any other reason, you might not have to do that much of your time, right? That's not as true in the federal system because there's an actual rule that, with some exceptions, but basically everyone's got to do about 90% of your time. So I was explaining this on air about, like, people are like, well, what about this or that? And I was like, these state cases don't put the pressure. But when they indicted Michael Cohen, the Trump lawyer, on a type of charge that could bring up to like 30 years, it was like, as a federal charge, if he was convicted of that, he'd actually have to do the 27 years.
Okay.
And then I was like, now most people don't know this. But people who know this are people who are lawyers or people who deal with the streets, like real talk, people who need to know this because the people are facing bids. And I was like, and this was on, like, back, I think this was early 50, maybe Power of the Dollar or something. But he said, with the feds, you do 90% of your time. Duke, that means if you get 10, you'll damn near do 9. And it was in a song about why people flip in those cases as opposed to others. And so I was saying that on air, and then he responded and posted his thing, and then everyone was looking at it. But the truth is, that's not just like what's revelatory for news is that's not just, oh, that's funny or cute. It's also like, we're literally explaining the sentencing guidelines. And Vic's correct about it because he's, at that time in his life, was at least adjacent or conversant with that world.
If good, bad, or indifferent, if Trump were a rapper, who would he be? Good, bad, or indifferent? Or if you had to give him a rapper name, what would it be?
I mean, I think if he were a rapper, he would be like Tekashi. You know, really. And I think Ebro said that too. But I think a lot of us thought of that because there's so much swagger and persona, but when you dig underneath, is any of it real? I mean, is he even a politician or a president, or was he playing that in the same way that is Tekashi 6ix9ine, like really a musician, or is he something else? Is it all a performance art that is using that? So that's one. I mean, I also think that, you know, I think Trump then and now understands some deep aspects of our humanity, and unfortunately, some of them are negative. Right. He didn't go to, you know, I've worked back in the old days. I worked for 2 senators. I've been around this. I mean, a lot of these politicians, you know, they go to like politician training camp, you know, and you could tell
he missed that first day of class thing.
I think he skipped the whole thing, but then he, in a way that's often been divisive for our nation, as everyone knows, particularly going through January 6th, he didn't need lessons to figure out how to tap into people's deep-seated animal instincts and that. So I think art also does that. The problem is when art does it to expose something, again, I'll go back to Godfather because so many people love that movie. You know, do people who love The Godfather love murder? I don't think so. Most of them are law-abiding citizens, just like people love hip hop, but hip hop's in this, not all hip hop anyway. But so I think Trump definitely, like certain art, tapped into like, oh, you want that energy and that performance and that. And I always said he was the chief content officer. He didn't act like the chief executive officer.
Right. Now, who would Biden be if he was a rapper?
Another question I've never been asked. I mean,
is he more like a Snoop? Like he's late in the cut? Like kind of.
I wouldn't give him Snoop. No disrespect to the president. I mean, I would give him like maybe Big Daddy Kane.
All right.
You know, but it might even have to be honestly a little less cool, because I don't think Biden's thing is being cool. I think Biden's thing is being kind and being measured. Right. And like we were reporting on this here, since becoming president, you know, Trump was in the 40s of approval the whole time, dropped to the 30s at the end. Everyone said, oh, we're so divided. You know, you're just not going to see unity again, right? Biden surged to 62% approval, which means by definition, Trump voters and Republicans are now approving of him. And I don't think that's because they think he's cool or this or that. I think there's a kind of a measured balance or kindness there that it's relatable, even if they might disagree on some things. I mean, I'm trying to think, maybe also like a little bit of Queen Latifah.
I'm thinking he may be definitely down with the native tongues. I definitely feel he would be a native tongue.
Or like, or middle stage Common.
I like that too.
Basically,
I like that too.
And these are, I'm not saying this to shade anyone, but these are artists, like, these aren't the artists that like the kids put on or you run in the club or you're like the bangers, but like Common's like, there's a reason why Common has widespread respect, or Queen Latifah is like, and she's evolved her career, but back when she was an artist, it was like that. You know, it's hard. Not everyone gets as excited. It's the same in music and politics. People don't get as excited when you're like, let's all get together and listen to each other. Like, does that slap as a chorus? Like, probably not, right?
Probably not.
But yeah, I think he taps into that. I think there are artists, like, because I think about that with Common, like, because when you really talk to rappers, if they're not, you know, in public, like, they're not always like giving the utmost. Like, they don't really think that some of these conscious rappers have the best bars, you know, but they're
true.
But they're still respectful. Like, no, but like, thank you for what you're leading us on. We need that, you know, we need that in this world. And I think Biden's like that, because again, like, it's no shade to Biden to note that, like, he wasn't the Democrats. I'm just talking facts. In the primary, he wasn't the Democrats' first choice. He wasn't their second choice.
Right.
He wasn't their third choice. I mean, if you followed that, they looked for everyone else, and other people were winning states. And he was like fifth in New Hampshire. It's not because people didn't like or respect him. They were just looking for something else.
Right. Something different.
Everyone knows Clyburn and South Carolina. Everyone said, wait a minute. We looked at all these other choices. So we definitely looked. They knew his name. Everyone knew Joe Biden. He was Obama's VP. They looked around, and then they said, you know who our fifth choice is? Literally fifth in New Hampshire? This really nice guy who we still know he knows how to do the job. I mean, he was a heartbeat from it. We'll go with him. And so there's a style of that. And we live in a culture where everyone wants to be number one and flashy and all that. I don't think Joe Biden's flashy. I think he's sturdy.
After these past couple of years, what continues to motivate you to be, because you are Emmy nominated, you are number one right now. And, you know, everyone likes to take a shot at the man or woman who's on top. What motivates you to continue to get better?
Well, I know I'm not doing the best I can. You know what I mean? You still there?
Yep.
Yeah. I know I'm not. I mean, the first thing is I'm not doing the best possible work that I can yet. I'm still learning the medium. So I know that I have a lot more to go in terms of putting on the best possible show, having the best story selection, making sure that we're hitting the things that other people aren't hitting, seeing things that other people aren't seeing, holding up new voices, driving stories forward beyond just what happened, but also giving people a path and a lens to see the world. And sometimes when warranted, like solutions in public service journalism, I'm just not there yet. So if you hypothetically said that someday when I was whatever age, I really confidently felt or knew that I was there, yeah, maybe that would take a little bit of motivation out of it, but I'm so far from that that I don't even, that's not even like slowing me down. And then the second thing is, I really feel this obligation, because sometimes I'll look back, you know, we work hard and there's always another show, so that just keeps you moving. But I will look over, because I have ways that I look over the week, and I'll look back and say, you know, I missed multiple opportunities here to really push beyond the main stories and bring this other thing in. Or right now, where we're looking at a follow-up to a story we did about a guy on death row, where there's a lot of real questions about his case and whether he was wrongfully accused. And we're trying to figure out, when do we get that back on air? And there's never a night where that's easy to get on, because it's a random person that is not national news unless we try to make it so. And there's always going to be other things. And so I look at that sometimes and go, oh, I'm letting some people and things down when I have this platform right now. And this platform, just like life itself, is always limited time only. So that motivates me, because I'm like, I don't try to get in the headspace of beating myself up for it. It's more about, well, what about the next show and the next week? And I'm like, so that motivates me, because it's like, we get to speak to this many people, which is a type of influence. I don't get to tell people what to think, but I get to propose what to think about. So you're going to make up your own mind. I could show you, look at how police are treating people. Look at this injustice. Now you can look at that, and then now I'm putting that out. I get to put that on the screen, right? Now someone may look at that and say, actually, Ari, I hear you, but I disagree. Okay. Or I don't think that's the most important thing, or I don't think that's fixable. So you can put poverty or hunger on the screen. You can put a drought on the screen, just like you can put the energy problems in Texas on the screen. And some people are going to say, we have to do something. We have to figure it. And other people are going to say, that's life. I had a hard life too. That's part of life. So that's really important. As my limit is not to tell you what to think, but it motivates me to look at sometimes and say, man, there's a lot more important stuff that I haven't quite gotten on there yet, or I got some of it on. There's more to do. Because when the platform goes, for whatever reason, things come and go, then it's like, all right, I hope we did our best with that, because that's the type of influence.
You've had so many notable guests on your show. One, who has been your favorite guest up to this point? And also, who is a guest that you would like to see, who you really want to have some really great conversation with?
I'd love to get Supreme Court Justice John Roberts on. He does almost zero journalistic interviews. I'm dying to get Jay-Z on. I think I've mentioned that to you before, but it still has not occurred. In terms of favorite guests, I mean, it's really interesting when you have people who are really open, and not everyone is going to always be open at every moment in their life, and certainly not on a live TV interview. So we all get that, right? But I caught Lee Daniels at a time, I think it was around his 50th birthday. And we built enough of a rapport that it seemed like he was really ready to share part of himself, his journey, his frustrations with the industry, what he's overcome, what it's like being a Black director where you can win an Oscar and still have like virtually zero legitimate movie offers, which was a story he told in that interview. And then at one point he broke down, was very emotional, and then later said, oh, that's the only time he'd ever cry in an interview. So when I mentioned timing earlier, you might have caught him when he was on the come up, when he was 35, and he would have to be more guarded for some of the reasons I just mentioned, or later maybe he's over it, because once you've said your piece enough times, you're like, I said it. So that he was a great interview because of that moment that he was in, and how open he was. And then someone was like, when I was interviewing Dan Harmon, who actually created Rick and Morty, which I mentioned earlier because I'm a big fan of that show, talking to someone about their work, and he's like, 5 times smarter than me. So he's faster and ahead of every question, every thought the whole time, which is fine because hopefully the audience gets something out of that. But in the interview, I felt like I was playing tennis with a grandmaster, and I was just like falling all over the court intellectually. And that's really kind of fun, because it's the best thing about interviewing is it's not, if it's done well, it's not usually about the interviewer.
Right.
So
right.
If something interesting happens and I look off base or surprised or stupid, even whatever, that's fine. Like, I obviously have to look prepared and professional. I shouldn't be, unprofessional. But with after that baseline, it's all good. That someone who's also good about that is Oprah, because you can watch a good Oprah interview, and it's like you knew she was there, but like you hardly heard from her. sometimes, or someone's crying to her, or Barbara Walters.
Right.
Or so those are some of the interviews that stand out in my mind just off the top of my head.
Ari, I've been playing this game called University of Dope with so many amazing guests, and today we're going to have the opportunity to play with you. This is for the culture. Unpopular opinions are welcome. You only have one opportunity to pass.
Okay.
And it is just like a speed round. So,
okay.
Ari Melber, welcome to University of Dope. First question. Most influential rap song of all time. Is it A, The Message, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, B, Rapper's Delight, Sugar Hill Gang, C, Planet Rock, Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, or D, Sucker MCs, Run DMC?
The Message.
If someone wanted to experience hip hop for the first time, Ari, what album would you give them? Would you give them A, The Low End Theory, A Tribe Called Quest, B, Enter the Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang Clan, C, Straight Outta Compton, NWA, or D, Paid in Full, Eric B. and Rakim?
That is so hard, but it's got to be 36 Chambers, because that is hip hop as movie making, storytelling, the full feeling.
Okay. You're stranded on a deserted island, but can only listen to one album, Ari. What will it be? A, Black on Both Sides, Most Def. B, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. C, 3 Feet High and Rising, De La Soul, or D, The Chronic, Dr. Dre?
You got good judgment. Two of my favorite albums are on this list, Black on Both Sides and Miseducation. For me, it would be Miseducation, for the range. If I'm on the island and I got the reggaeton, Lost Ones, boom bap, and then I got the R&B, Smooth Out, and then I got, you know, her skits with this in this classroom. That album takes you on a human journey.
Awesome. Who is winning in a jailhouse brawl? Is it A, The Brat, B, Remy Ma, C, Young M.A., or D, Foxy Brown?
I think it's Young M.A., honestly.
Okay. All right.
I do. Yeah.
Best Jay-Z album is A, Reasonable Doubt, B, The Blueprint, C, Volume 2, Hard Knock Life, or D, 444?
Well, the clinically best is The Blueprint, but Reasonable Doubt is one of the best debut albums in any genre of all time. And lately, I've been listening to 444 more than the other ones, but it is B for Blueprint.
Greatest diss song of all time. Is it A, Hit 'Em Up, Tupac, B, Ether, Nas, C, Takeover, Jay-Z, or D, No Vaseline, Ice Cube?
You didn't even put Pusha on here.
I didn't put Pusha on there.
You didn't even put Gloria Adhanon on here, which I think might replace No Vaseline if I were making the list. But these are very good contestants. For sheer diss power, you're saying greatest diss, it's Hit 'Em Up.
All right. So this is usually played in a setting with a couple different players, but recite the first couple of bars of Nothing But a G Thing. And I'll start you off.
1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door, ready to make an entrance. So back on up, because you know we're about to hit it blank up.
All right. $75,000 or tickets to the Rock Nation brunch? Which would you take?
The brunch, no question. I mean, look, if you made it hard and said $75K for charity, then I would give it to someone. But if it's for me, just me versus the brunch is how you phrase it. I'm at the brunch, baby. Experiences, once you can eat and have a roof over your head, because we all need to live. But if you are already living, experiences enrich life more than the next chunk of change.
Agreed. Stay woke. Best politically conscious song. Is it A, Fight the Power, Public Enemy, B, F the Police, NWA, C, Hip Hop by Dead Prez, or D, When We Say is by Mos Def and Yasin Bey?
It's Fight the Power because you actually have an anthem, but Dead Prez Hip Hop slaps more. This is what we were talking about earlier. Some of these conscious songs, they don't actually always want to come on in a group party space.
Right.
But I love Fight the Power, but hip hop is a classic. That's Dead Prez's like breakout song, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. If these 4 MCs were on the same track today, who would come out on top, Ari? Would it be A, LL Cool J, B, Rakim, C, KRS-One, or D, Big Daddy Kane?
Rakim.
The God, Allah himself. Lights, camera, action. Best film with a rapper in it. Is it A, Belly, B, Paid in Full, C, Boys in the Hood, or D, Set It Off?
Boys in the Hood. Easy.
Drum roll, please. Best hip hop soundtrack. Is it A, Friday, B, Above the Rim, C, 8 Mile, or D, Juice?
Honestly, I don't remember all the songs on Friday. I know there were good songs on there because I'm guessing Friday, but I would honestly want to look at the track list. 8 Mile has like the 3 breakout songs that are incredible, but I don't give it the whole thing. And then Above the Rim, I to be real, I don't remember.
All right. One got to go, Ari. If you had to, who would it be? A, J. Cole, B, Drake, C, Kendrick Lamar, or D, Childish Gambino? Unpopular opinions are welcome.
You know,
if you had to,
we're talking about music, right? This is for music.
This is for hip hop. This is for the culture.
Well, it's Childish Gambino.
All right.
I'm sorry. And I like her.
Erase one person from hip hop history. Who would it be? A, Swiss Beats, B, Dr. Dre, C, the RZA, or D, Timbaland?
I'm passing. You said I get one pass. There.
You get one pass. And the last question, Ari. Erase one person from hip hop history. Who would it be? A, Nas, B, the Notorious B.I.G., C, Tupac, or D, Jay-Z?
I mean, this is insanity. I mean, I should have passed on this one. I felt like these were getting progressively harder. Out of these, I guess Nas.
Ari, I appreciate you for playing University of Dope. Unpopular opinions are welcome. You can grab that card game at universitydope.com. Ari, music is a soundtrack to our lives, man. Before I let you go, I always like asking my guests, what song best represents your journey up to this point, or which artist inspires you and is woven into your journey up to this point?
Jay-Z inspires me for growing and living out loud, and really being a model, and not a perfect model, but a model including addressing life's difficulties and human frailty. The song I've been playing lately, just to turn up, is Sleep When You Die, 2 Chainz. And it just has a lot of energy. Other songs I use for energy are like Rick Ross and Future, and artists where like you may or may not even like what they're saying, but there's a real pump to it, you know? But an album you mentioned earlier, when you go to What I Believe, an album like Black on Both Sides continues to inform the way I see the world. It did when I was a kid, and it does today. So you put that back on, you put a song like Mathematics on, and you think about everything we've been going through with Black Lives Matter and protests, and you say, wow, this has all been spelled out for so long. So that informs, in a way, those other songs may not go as deep. That informs some of how I try to look at the world.
Ari, I appreciate your time. You have been doing some amazing work, incredible journalism. You've been bringing hip hop and politics together for both sides to learn something about each other. We hope and pray. And here's to another nod for this Emmy in 2021, man. I really believe you have something going on, and I'm putting it out there in the universe.
There you go.
Maybe there's room for me to do a guest appearance. Maybe we got something, but we're gonna put something together, man. We're gonna hip hop and politics.
Get June. Now I've done your side. We'll get June on the other side, on the beat. And thank you for everything, man. I've enjoyed getting to know you through all this, and we'll continue, sir.
Listen, this is Ari Melber from The Beat. He is on weekdays, Monday through Friday on MSNBC. This is your host, June Archer. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. God bless y'all. Make sure you tell somebody you love them. Maybe the last time you have the opportunity. Life is short, but we have the opportunity to embrace each other now more than ever. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Peace.